Hello mathematicians, puzzlers, and other curious people. In this video, I'm demonstrating some ways learners can use features of the TeacherMade web app to show their work. I use this web app with my learners, so this video is mostly meant for them, but if other people are also learning to use TeacherMade from this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments section. Just one thing. In case you're working on an assignment for another teacher, I want to let you know that some of these tools can be switched off and on from the teacher's side, so it's possible your menu bar won't have all the same options. Let's get started. Here's an activity in TeacherMade that I accessed using a link. Depending on how your teacher provides activities, you might need to put your name or an ID number in a box to get to this point. One good thing to know is you can use this button to zoom in, either to expand small details or for reasons like if you don't have your glasses at hand. You can also use this button to zoom out, reversing the process, which you might want to do if you got what you need from the closer zoom level and now would like to not need to scroll up and down as much. I'm going to zoom in like so. I see we're asked to calculate two things: this figure's volume and its surface area. We would do that in different ways depending on what kind of figure it is. I have an idea about some formulae that would help, but first I want to check that this is the kind of figure those formulae apply to. Some other time I'll make a video about why this is true, but for our purposes right now of learning the TeacherMade features, what we need to know is that the kind of three-dimensional figure I'm thinking of, a right prism, could be represented on two-dimensional pages or screens using three sets of parallel edges, where the edges from two of the sets are perpendicular. You can check and keep track of whether edges are parallel by using this tool, which draws straight line segments. After drawing a segment that traces one edge, you can drag it around and see if other edges are going the same direction. Then you can use the same tool to draw with the same color on the ones that are parallel. To change colors, click this box and choose the color you want to use next. Now we can see that we have three sets of parallel segments. It looks to me like the orange ones and pink ones are perpendicular. We can check by using this protractor. It's not a built-in feature of TeacherMade. Instead, it's a movable graphic that I add to a lot of my TeacherMade assignments when angle measurements are important. So if you're doing work set up by a different teacher, they might want you to handle this kind of task a different way. You're probably more familiar with protractors like this one, which are half a circle and you can turn them. TeacherMade doesn't currently offer learners a way to rotate a movable graphic. Instead, we will measure the location in degrees clockwise from the top of the circle of both sides of the angle and subtract to find out how many degrees are in between them. Just like the mark or hole on this kind of protractor, the full circle has a particular spot that is supposed to be lined up with the angle's vertex when we measure an angle, which is this cross mark in the middle. Since the sides of this angle here are too short to extend to the edges of the protractor where the numbers are, we will use the straight segment tool to extend them. I'm also being consistent with the same color coding we had already started using. Now we can measure these two sides' direction. One of them is at 270 degrees and the other is at 0. One of them is at 270 degrees and the other is at 0. 0 degrees is the same as 360 because 360 degrees is all the way around the circle. The difference between these two is 90 degrees, so this is a right angle. So I believe this drawing is intended to represent a right prism. Because I have a tablet and stylus, it's convenient for me to use the freehand writing tool to take notes of my process, like what kind of figure I believe this problem is about. If you don't have those tools or are working a problem when you don't have them at hand, you might find it more convenient to type your process notes using the text tool. As I mentioned earlier, there are formulae which apply to right prisms for their volume and surface area. Since I will use those formulae, it's a good idea to write them down. Instead of writing by hand or typing them, I will use the Math Formula tool. It kind of looks like calculator buttons, which you'll find right here. After clicking the button, click approximately where you want the formula to appear. You can find letters in this last tab of the Math tool, or type them in using your keyboard. And most other things you would need are in the first tab. And after typing the formula, you can move it around. After using some decomposition strategies that I record this way, I determined that B is 220 square inches. Also, H is 4 inches. I'm using the formula tool again to record how I plug those facts into this formula. Then I multiply using mental math and determine that the figure's volume is 880 cubic inches. When I set this worksheet up, I use the type of answer box that includes tools very similar to the math formula tool, so I can write this answer with mathematical formatting. In particular, I will write IN to the power 3 inches cubed for cubic inches. Now I will use the next formula to calculate the figure's surface area. To find P, the perimeter, I need to determine some missing measurements, which I use addition, subtraction, and properties of the figure for. Then I use the formula tool to record the part of the process where I add up the measurements that combine to make the perimeter. After that, I use the formula tool again to plug P and B into the surface area formula. Because I need to do more than one calculation to evaluate this expression, I use the formula tool to write out another line of my process. Before writing my answer, 696 square inches. In this box. If you were paying attention a lot, you might have noticed that there are some buttons in the menu bar that we didn't use, like some of the drawing tools, the link tool, and the picture upload tool. I focused on the ones I expect my learners to use the most often, but please do feel free to try out any other tools that you think will help you record your process. Calc you later!